Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. And I'm sorry that this video hasn't been really getting out too much because it's kind of been hard with the whole file getting corrupted. Not fun. But hope you guys like this for my Watchmen review. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. And today I will be reviewing Watchmen. Might be in reverse. Who cares? But yeah, this movie is 11 years old now, and was kind of underrated when it came out. Not really the best movie at the time, but at least it was okay for what it had. It had a 65 on Rotten Tomatoes. And it had a 7.6 on IMDb. Sorry, I just can't speak today. But y'all know what I'm trying to say. But yeah, this movie was amazing. I absolutely loved it. The characters were just phenomenal. Well, and I wish we saw more of this movie. But if this movie would have come out nowadays, it would have been great. But it didn't come out nowadays, so I guess you can say that it wasn't really that good back then. But with that being said, what do we have to say for this movie? Well, it's kind of good. It's really good as it is. But why was it so underrated? I think back then no one really at all understood the whole superhero genre yet. Nowadays we see it all over the place. In this movie, because this movie just came off the heels of The Dark Knight. I mean, like, one of the best superhero movies to exist. The Dark Knight. It's amazing. I mean, like, a graphic, gory movie like this it's rated R. I mean, how are you gonna get off of this? With one of the best movies that is PG-13, yet makes it scary as hell. I mean, it's just not possible. But when we do see this movie, it's so I don't like saying this a lot because if I keep saying this, it's gonna keep getting wearing out. But it's so amazing. The acting is great. The overall story is great. Not gonna go into too much spoilers. Actually, kind of have to because this is a review, and I wish that we would have gotten an actual TV show that instead of just making one maybe an hour of a movie, make each episode a chapter of the old graphic novel and making it almost close enough to the graphic novel, but also taking stuff from this movie because a lot of stuff in this movie makes the graphic novel a little more better. Without further ado, let's get into it. We start off our movie with Edward Blake, played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and just sitting there and watching the news. It was about how the Russians are going to start to go into Cold War. Now, they keep saying that the Russians won't do this because they don't want to start war, because they have pretty much they pretty much don't even have anything that would help them against a literal god, Dr. Manhattan, and played by Billy Crupted, or Crubhooped. I don't know. Sorry if I'm butchering your name. I'm just very. Well, he's probably never gonna watch this one, so why does this matter? But pretty much, we get to see the main villain of the movie, Ozymandias, played by Matthew Goody. Again, I'm not too good with names, so we get to see him killing Edward Blake. Actually, I'm just gonna call them all by their hero names just to make it a little more or great. Capiche? Nice. Now, then afterwards we cut to that happening. We cut to our main, more of just our person we're mostly focusing on, our detective, Rorschach, played by Jackie E. Hurley. Or Jackie Earl Hurley. I'm sorry, I'm not good with these names. I'm just not gonna tell you this from now on. But he figures out that Edward Blake was the comedian, and apparently there was an act long ago, back in the 70s, to where they were all outlawed. Now this is set in the 80s, so obviously a little more better stuff, but if they can have a grappling hook in the 80s, like I don't know what's gonna happen in the graphic novel. Well, science is way approved because of Dr. Manhattan. But yeah. Now pretty much if the entire story is focused on the death of Edward Blake and how Rorschach is trying to figure out who did this. One of his theories is that someone's picking off masked vigilantes and they're going after more people, which would pretty much mean the entire Watchmen, when really that's not the plan at all, but I'll get to that in a moment. Most of this is kind of hard to grasp a lot of the time because it's very interesting. It really is, but because it's made by Zack Snyder, who directed most of the new DC films and directed 300 and this movie. But really, what can we say about this? It's based on one of the best-selling graphic novels to ever exist. Now, I can definitely see why no one liked this movie. Too graphic. Definitely too graphic. But Zack Snyder puts a lot of work into these movies. But I'm getting off topic. We meet another one of the Watchmen, and that were made back in the 70s. But pretty much that's all crazy. But before the Watchmen, there was this thing called the Minutemen, which we briefly get a hint of in the opening credits, and it pretty much just shows all the Minutemen, and we got the original Night Owl, we got the original Silk Spectre. It's interesting. Now we learn later on that Edward Blake, or we learn pretty much in the opening credits, Edward Blake was part of the Minutemen. And that's no surprise here, because he's an old dude, but he's built like a linebacker. That's pretty crazy, if you ask me. But anyway, we meet our second Night Owl, played by Patrick Willis. Hopefully I'm saying that right. If I'm not, sorry about that. Why am I saying that? I told you. Anyway, we see him meeting up with the older Night Owl, which I'm just not going to butcher the name. And we see him meeting up with the older Night Owl for their annual drinking. I think they said every once a week they do this. Now, I'm releasing this the day before Halloween, because this is technically set in the year where it's like around Halloween. And it's starting to get into it. Because in the graphic novel, more days go by and then it turns into Halloween. And I'm pretty sure in this movie that it also turns into Halloween. So, we also see that Rorschach goes to Night Owl 2, he's just normal Night Owl now. We see that Rorschach finds Night Owl and just kind of warns him about what he thinks is a guy picking off masked vigilantes. throws an accusation about the original Night Owl, saying some bad stuff about the comedian in his book Under the Hood. But, it's just an accusation. Nothing's gonna happen about that. But we start to see that Rorschach isn't all up here. Because he's eating beans from a can. Doesn't even want to heat them up. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's delicious. But, back then, I don't think that was really accepted. I don't know, I didn't live in the 80s. But then he kind of monologues a lot of the time. He says something about Rorschach's journal. And we come to figure out that Rorschach, as we go on, we see more about Rorschach himself. And we learn about him. We kind of grow on him. But we also meet two people, or we meet one more of the Watchmen. And Lori Jupiter, who is the second Silk Spectre after her mother Sally Jupiter, which was the first one. And now she didn't really like being a superhero. She kind of hated the entire idea itself, but she didn't have anything to say about it. So we also traditionally meet Dr. Manhattan in this movie, which his CGI is amazing. And the actor for this, I love how he just portrays a very emotionless, godly character. If we could see more of this, this would be pretty good. We also get later on to see his backstory, but that's not really relevant. But in this universe, a lot of our history rolls around into their history. Like the killing of JFK. Apparently the comedian did that. And apparently it was also back then, the comedian and JFK were kind of buds. But we keep going on, and we see that Dr. Manhattan can't really see into his future because something called tachyons are blocking it, which would be caused by nuclear war, which would send those tachyons back through what we perceive as time and block his vision into the future. You can see maybe a couple minutes into the future, but that's it. But we pretty much see Night Owl visit Ozymandias. Sorry about that. That has to do with a few things. But we see that it's all handy dandy until, it's really not. Ozymandias gets attacked by someone. Rorschach visits one of the comedians and Miss Dr. Manhattan's old arch nemesis, Moloch. And, as time goes on, we see Dr. Manhattan's funeral, or not Dr. We see the comedian's funeral, and we see how Dr. Manhattan and Night Owl, pretty much anyone who had kind of weird similarities with him, they don't like him, obviously. I mean, who would like him? He's not really that great of a guy. He didn't really set an example. But they kind of have glimpses into his past to where they start to see a few things. And this is that. It doesn't really contribute to the story. It's just to show how kind of evil he was, how corrupted. Sorry, I was gonna fix my mask real quick. There we go. Yeah, well, no, I'll just have to stay there. Just ignore it. But yeah, we see how evil he is, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan definitely portrays him as being an evil character. Dr. Manhattan gets sent off-world, and Rorschach gets taken to prison, and now being called Walter Kovacs, he gets an interview by a psychiatrist, which then we figure out that Walter had a prostitute for a mother, which hated his guts. He was bullied when he was a kid because of his mother. And is pretty much just not really a model citizen. We also get, in this part, or in the comic, we get more of an in-depth look, because this takes place over like weeks. But Silk Spectre and Night Owl, start to have a romantic relationship, and they start to sleep together. Yeah, great. Definitely will piss off the big man. Who doesn't like wearing underwear? Yay! But we see how this might affect everything, because she just got off the heels of breaking up with him, or not Night Owl, but Dr. Manhattan, and now she's kind of getting into new stuff. When Dr. Manhattan was exiled, we start to see more of his backstory. We see that he had a lover before, or Laurie, that was named Janie Slater, and she pretty much kind of went with him after the accident, even though, let's all just say, in the movie we see that she just runs off. Okay, this is starting to bother me, I'm sorry. You see that she starts to run off as he's being disintegrated, but he's pretty much like a watchmaker in the comic and in the movie. So he learns to assemble himself back together. Really interesting, actually. But he pretty much forms himself into this godly being. And when he does this, we start to see Dr. Manhattan. Now they start to, figure out that Rorschach probably was onto something, so they break him out of prison. Laurie goes with Dr. Manhattan to Mars, which now Dr. Manhattan sees as his new home. And when they went to Mars, she tries to convince him to come back and help Earth. He doesn't want to, because he thinks that it's pointless and they'll never stop fighting. But while this is happening, Rorschach and Night Owl will go to Ozymandias' as pretty much estate, or just, I'm probably just using that word wrongly. Goes to goes to his, it just goes to his building. It's just big building. Just finds out that he's the one that's been running this program called the Pyramid International, which was Rorschach's lead to finding out who killed the comedian, but was kidnapped because Ozymandias tipped off the police. And told them that Rorschach would be there at the time, because in this universe he didn't really want to go along with the act and just kind of went out on his own as a vigilante, which is what he kind of was the entire time. But he just goes with it, and he was wanted by the police. They all try to look for him. Every time they see him, he kind of just disappears. They catch him. He's spewing out about them to give him back his face, but that you need to watch the movie to understand that. But they go to Ozymandias, try to fight him for a moment. Then Dr. Manhattan comes and tries to stop him himself. He gets disintegrated again, and assembles himself faster than usual, because that was the first thing he ever learned to do. And it's not all that bad to learn to reassemble yourself again. But we start to get to the climax of the movie. Pretty much Ozymandias was making a big bomb that would blow up, and it would make Dr. Manhattan look guilty for destroying cities around the world, most important ones. So then the Russians and the United States, pretty much everyone goes to just calls a truce and tries to unite against this threat that is Dr. Manhattan. Now in the movies, a giant squid, or I think it was a squid. It was either squid or a giant starfish, or whatever it was. It was destroyed a lot. Just destroyed Manhattan, or just New York itself. And yeah, they unite to fight that thing, but it disappears, and they just kind of have world peace because they're afraid it's gonna come back again. But pinning this all on Dr. Manhattan's a pretty good idea because they already mess with his emotions, and this make perfect sense for them. Like, of course, Dr. Manhattan's gonna probably do something like this because he's not in the best mental state right now. But Dr. Manhattan finds his new love for humans, goes back and realizes that Ozymandias is right. But Rorschach ain't taking none of that. Tries to go tell the world about this. Him and Dr. Manhattan have a conversation out in the snow about if Dr. Manhattan would have cared in the first place, then none of this would have been happening, and that what is another body amongst foundations, and Dr. Manhattan kills Rorschach. It's kind of a sad thing to see because Walter shows emotion at this last minute. He never shows emotion without his mask on, but there's only 2 scenes in this entire movie where he shows emotion, other than anger. He shows it when he's talking to Dan before they go and fight Ozymandias, and he shows it now. Rorschach doesn't know. He's confused. He's sad. He's angry. He's scared. But he dies, and this is what makes it hard to kind of comprehend because they kill off the main person that's telling the story here. But thankfully, he drops off his journal, which retells everything up to that point where Ozymandias and it had to think. So it leaves it up to you as the viewer or the reader to decide on, does the story get published or does it stay where it is? It's a very big dilemma, and I really hoped that it wouldn't have to be that way, but it made the story more interesting, and I do love it how well it was. But if you all like this video, then please consider subscribing, and please hit that like button. And if you want to see more, then click that bell, and I'll see y'all in the next one.